To take the alternator out, you'll have to take the intake off, the air snorkeler, tube going to the throttle body, and make it much easier. Take the battery out so you can get to the throttle body much easier. Taking out the battery, taking a loose the snorkel, and now taking a loose the throttle body. Take a loose this plug from the throttle body. That is your map sensor, your idle control sensor. This plug you have to take out this plug, that plug, and that plug. Next is the intake bolts. Got one there. We got one there. Got one there. Got one there. And you got one. You have one right there. This is my trick. I put a magnet by the nut so I won't drop the nut. The magnet will catch the nut. I'll loosen it with a socking tool. I need to get some magnetic sockets, but the magnet, I clip it to it and I won't lose the bolt or the nut. And you have two bolts underneath the throttle body. You take two bolts off and a bracket with two connectors off the intake, and you take these two hoses off at the intake above the throttle body and next to the tube that runs air to the intake. These are the intake bolts and where the nuts go in. You have to unbolt from the engine. And these are the two holes you have to take the nuts out of. That's underneath the intake. This is the alternator bracket. You have to take that bolt loose, that bolt loose, and that bolt loose. And there's a bolt underneath the alternator. You gotta take that bolt loose and that screw loose right there. And you have to take that nut off. You lift up on the tension like this, You get more leverage on it, and then you take the belt off. You grab onto the belt and lift it off. You gotta take loose this bolt, and it's another bolt underneath the alternator. You have to take off this nut and take out this plug. You have to put a pry bar or pry tool on it and pry it back, the alternator, to get to the bolt underneath the alternator. That last bolt is hell to get out. I had to use a ratchet, and then I had to put a wrench on it to get more leverage to push back. I couldn't get my breaker bar in a position I can put pressure on it. I had to put my screwdriver on it and pry it back because it was stuck between this bracket and this top bracket too. You have to pry back on it because it gets stuck up there. And the last plug going back of the alternator. Bottom bolt go in first. I had to finagle it. I had to put some force on it just to get the right hole. You might have to jiggle it, beat it down, jiggle it to make sure the bolt is threading through. I had to use a wrench on it first so I could get it back before I could get a socket on it, because there's not enough room between the rail and the bolt. To line up the bolt on the top, I had to wedge my breaker bar in there, press against the alternator so the bolt can line up to the hole so I can tighten it down. I put tape on my bolts and nuts when they're in hard places like that to go into, so I won't lose them, they won't fall off my tool. Oh, I do tape on the nut. It was hell. It was 2 hours and 44 seconds on the timer. Not rushing, just taking my time. The first time I did the alternator, it was over 3 hours. Even you know what to do, sometimes it just takes longer to do it just by the process. So don't get frustrated. Take your time. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And take your time and just follow the steps.